Well, hello everyone. Happy December and welcome to APMG Connect. Now, this is the live stream panel show where we delve into the latest industry trends and insights. Now, I'm Lory Quackenbush. I'm with APMG International. I'm your host for today's exciting discussion on why change management can't wait in 2026. Now, today we're going to have a conversation on why investing in change management is critical for organizations and individuals in order to lead boldly through transformation. With today's absolutely current crazy chaos, we have a lot to talk about. Now, just a friendly reminder, this is a live event, so we'll be taking live questions from the audience today. So please put any live questions you have into the live questions Zoom Q&A. Now, to get this started, we have a very distinguished, and I'm going to say lively, group of expert panelists. So I'm going to go right ahead and introduce them. So ladies first, we have Sarah Hills. Now, Sarah is the owner of Carpe Omnia Training and CUPE International, a company that specializes in providing project and change management training. She dedicates her time to both managing the business and delivering training. Hi, Sarah. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. I'm so happy to be back on a panel. I have missed being on the panel actually, so really excited to be here. So hello, everybody.
Well, we love having you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise. And now next we have Jeannie McConnell. Now, Jeannie is the founder and managing director of Nexterity. And at Nexterity, Jeannie guides leaders through transforming by creating clarity from chaos and optimizing meaningful outcomes. And she's got 45 years of experience. Hi, Jeannie.
Hey, good morning, everybody from the Carolinas. So excited to be part of this esteemed panel, working with all of these brilliant minds from around the world and hearing what's on the minds of all the folks that have joined in with us today. Much appreciated.
We love having you, and I'm glad you have warmer weather than I have in New York here today, so go to that. Now, for the gentleman, next we have Adrian Pyne. Now, he's the director of consulting for Pyne Consulting Limited. Now, he's partly retired, but he's also the head of governance and a trustee of Pyne Melanoma, which is a new cancer research organization. He's the author of various works, notably the book Agile Beyond IT. He's an advisor, coach, visiting lecturer, and writer on organizational and project management agility. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm really good today. Thank you for the fantastic introduction. And delighted to be back on the panel. And my goodness, what a panel! I think it's going to be really energetic and great fun today.
I think we've got a saucy group today. I really do. It's going to be good. So lastly, but certainly not least, we have Ian Clark. He's the director of Fox IT Service Management in South Africa, also better weather. And he's a dynamic and enthusiastic director, service manager, governance and management practitioner, and lecturer with over 25 years of experience in internal and external delivery, IT management, system education, consultant, product, services, solutions, and projects. He does it all. Hi, Ian.
Hello, Lory, and hello to the esteemed panel and the lovely people out there in the room. Yeah, it's hot in South Africa, and let's try not to upset Adrian today by saying Agile PM is the same as Scrum. Yeah, and then you just see the mist.
Oh my goodness. We're just a few minutes in and the gloves are already off.
No. We don't want to upset people.
I love it. Now, don't forget, I just gave short introductions, but you can find the full bios for everybody on our APMG International event page. Now, also, we're going to have 3 polls today, and we're going to be picking 2 winners at the end of today's show to win a free Change Management Foundation exam on behalf of APMG. So stick around for that. And we're going to go right into the first poll. And I think these are really interesting. Just need our tech guys to put it up. All right, so which trend will make change management absolutely unavoidable in 2026? What a great poll. So please participate, go ahead and pick and choose what you think makes sense to you. And we're gonna go through the polls afterwards. So we have 3 of them we're gonna go through today. So let's get started. We have a lot to talk about and I have a feeling we're going to get really saucy today. So let's go right into some live questions and uncover why change management absolutely can't wait in 2026? And let me get into our first live question here, which is, why is change management now a critical capability amid AI, digital acceleration, and global instability? Now, who wants to start and kick us off with answering our very first glorious question? Sarah?
Yeah, I think as we were kind of having a bit of a discussion before, I think it's just really to be recognised that if you haven't got any change management capability in the organisation at the moment, or if it's not a level that it needs to be, regardless whether we're going to be talking about AI, digital acceleration, or the global instability, you're going to be in a position that's not going to be best for the people. And, it's all about people at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter what it is, it's ensuring that, we always make the best decisions about should we be doing something, should we not be doing something? If we should be doing something, should we be doing it now? Do we know enough about it? Have we got the right expertise to know more about it? And of course, from the outset, are we involving the right people to be able to move forward in the best way for everybody involved?
Right. So important. Yep. Ian, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think, echoing what Sarah's saying, it's always been critical, actually. So it's not all of a sudden now it's critical. It's always been critical, in my opinion. But yeah, the world today is a very, very crazy, fast moving, you could almost argue VUCA kind of Barney. I'm throwing acronyms out already. Can you believe it? Yeah, so look, it is without doubt because of the nature of change and its impact on as lovely human beings, it is very critical, but it always has been, I think, in my opinion.
It's not like we're going through any change or anything right now in our world. No chaos at all. Nothing. Absolutely.
No.
Yeah. Nah. Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, change management has evolved a great deal as program project management over my 40-year blah career. And probably now it's most important to provide that link between strategy and the delivery of change, and particularly in the area that was mostly ignored when I was starting out back in the 80s, and that is the people aspects. But today there are great models that integrate all aspects of change. So it starts with strategy and then looks at how you integrate changes to how the organization is structured, relationships between different parts of the organizations, and the various people, process, and technology aspects. Yeah. And if we can get away from this idea, particularly with AI being so sexy at the moment, that we should have AI-driven change and AI-driven. Take away that word driven and replace it with supported, because it should be AI supporting the business, not driving the business. We've been there before with IT-driven change. It's never worked out well.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that. So it's instead of driving, it's supporting. I like that. Really like that. Janine, I know you have a lot to say about this. What do you think?
Well, I think echoing what everybody else has said, this has been a chronic issue since technology has been around. We overlook change management. We overlook the impact of people. I think what's really critical coming into 2026 is the level of change saturation. I believe people are just overwhelmed with a continuous pummeling of change. The anxiety around AI is unparalleled. If you look at studies from Forrester, Gartner, all the major think tanks, 70 to 80% of the population is struggling from AI anxiety right now. Will it take my job? Will I be able to understand it? I don't even know where to jump in on this.
Yep.
Additionally, using that same number, around 70% of AI initiatives are quote unquote failing based on what metrics you're looking at. So I think it's really incumbent on all of us to sit back and understand we've ignored organizational change and people change for decades now. We've looked at that as an optional, nice to have, kind of if we have budget and if we have time, we'll pick that up. And I love and actually AI supported me in this conversation. Claude and I have great chats every day about looking at AI looking at change as pervasive rather than episodic. And I think in the past, we've looked at organizational change as drop in on a project, do some work, and then fly away. If it's going to become pervasive and changing people and supporting them, to use that term, throughout how they do their job, how they learn new skills, how they're redeployed, we need to think about the democratization of organizational change. It can't be one person or one team's responsibility anymore. It needs to be kind of pushed down to line managers, project managers, a wide variety of people following a common guidebook and driving towards the same strategic outcomes.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Ian, you had your hand up. Did you want to add to this, or are we good to move on?
Yeah, I was just like echoing what we were talking about now. I think that's a very, very good point. It's like change management is now not it's like we assign it to a project to manage the human the impact of the particular project, solution, whatever we're doing. Change management is almost now always on. There needs to be a change network. It needs to be always on, live, and constantly working to cope with what's going on in nowadays, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a huge cultural shift. That's a huge staffing shift. Everything changes when you think about organizational change being everyone's responsibility, not just that poor, beleaguered, overworked person that's assigned to 22 projects.
Yeah.
Such a good point, Jeannie. Good point. All right, should we move on? I know we've got tons and tons of live questions. We actually have a huge audience, so thank you for everybody for joining us. We're going to kind of blow through as many of these as we can. So on to the next question. So the next one is, what are the top risks if organizations fail to embed change management before AI-driven, not supported, driven disruption? Anyone? Adrian.
I think this one follows brilliantly from the previous question, the previous discussion. And it's about the organizational landscape and the organization culture. And because change is constant, and as has just been said, it needs to be an activity that's, if you like, built into the organization. The organization needs to change how it operates. And organization doesn't mean behavior, organization culture doesn't mean behaviors and mindsets. Those are the consequences, if you like, the outputs, the results of an organization's culture. But an organization's culture is represented by the whole of how an organization works. And so if you're going to be building a changed landscape, those at the top need to be understanding what that means, which is way big change in itself, because most C-suite level do not understand change. Even less do they understand projects, because most of them come from operational backgrounds. So there is a huge, if you like, understanding change that needs to start from the top if they are going to drive and sustain change and create this change landscape. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah, good stuff. Anybody want to add to this one, or should we keep going? Jeanine?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think we also need to be thinking about the human impact and the human toll in all of this, because as we've seen, there's the quiet quitting, there's the checking out, there's the mental health capacity of this whole thing, which is really where my passion is, having done this for plus some decades as well, is understanding that I think what our workforce is now seeing is unheralded in my 45 years of doing this. And I think the emotional toll, while that is absolutely a real human cost, organizations are not going to harvest the value that they think they're going to get from these massive investments if they exclude the impact on relationships, if they exclude the impact on the adoption. And most organizations start out with an ROI statement that doesn't really think about what good adoption looks like and how they're going to measure it. There's a whole lot of reasons I could go on for a long time about why that happens. But I think they need to be thinking about, how is adoption going to be measured? How is adoption going to impact the workforce? And how do they set up for successful organizational transition well in advance? This isn't something that happens at the end of the project. This is job one of the project, not at the end.
Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Ian, did you want to add?
Yeah, definitely. I think, what are the top risks? Well, obviously there's the standard stuff. There's the financial risk of the solution not working because you've not taken into account the human kind of side of that. I totally agree with AI specifically. It's that human mental health anxiety that seems to be buzzing around constantly at the moment. So yeah, I think there's some of the top risks. The question I'm really interested in is how does change management potentially help mitigate these particular risks as a practice, so to speak? Because with the guys on the panel, we're sitting here going, how can you not do change management? I mean, we're of that mindset, but we all know that many organizations, it's like insurance policies. Yeah, I don't need insurance until it happens, and then I wish I'd have done that. So
Right.
I'm kind of sitting there going, based on what's happening today, companies really need to start looking at change management as a practice or a competency formally, because we talked about it earlier. AI is, just by the nature of what it is, it's going to be extremely disruptive. And I could argue, if we don't want another AI winter, we need change management.
Love it. I like that. We don't want another AI winter. We need change management. Sarah, do you want to add?
Yeah, so it's kind of how it started, really, because that's what I was saying about it all goes down to the capability of the organisation and those people. And the irony that I find is, if we just talk about, the risks of, the introduction of AI not being done properly, it's going to have the risk of reputation, as you alluded to already, finance, massively the people. But it all, like say, goes down to, we need to understand, actually, is it going to be beneficial, and why we're doing it, and why should we not be doing certain things, and taking it to the right people. Working with an organisation recently, and they completely forgot to involve, the whole risk team, the whole team that, deal with certain aspects. And that's where I said we just need to go back to basics and remember about getting it right and involving the right people from the beginning and throughout, to kind of make sure that we're building that capability throughout and ongoing, really.
Yeah. It's almost mind-blowing that organizations aren't just, putting this into the foundation at the get-go, right? All right, let's keep going, guys. We have a lot of questions to answer. Really good panelists. You guys are awesome. So thank you for these great answers. Okay, next question. Which core skills should professionals, not just leaders, build to stay relevant in a fast-changing world? Fast-changing world? What do you mean? News every day. Sarah.
And so, of course, resilience goes about saying, we can build resilience for ourselves and those around us. But actually, what I think more and more, I think people need to start having the ability and the support and the coaching and training, how to grow in their own confidence, how to feel comfortable in their own skin. And when they're actually in situations, have the conviction to be able to challenge. Again, that does link back to the kind of cultural ability and so forth. But I honestly think people benefit from starting to build confidence and learn how to perhaps deal with confrontation, in a positive way. A little bit about it's okay to have your own opinions. I always say, whenever I'm delivering any training, I'd be a bit worried if people didn't think differently about things or want to kind of suggest different things. And I think that's certainly something that will be valuable for people, being able to manage those relationships, but also have the strength and the know-how how to contribute when needed in the kind of right way.
Right. Love it. Makes sense. Jeannie, I think you were next.
Yep. So adding on to what Sarah just said, I think it's critical that we focus on relationship. If you look at the things that are some of the underpinning root cause issues around under optimization of an AI implementation, a lot of it is not looking at your stakeholder universe appropriately, not building the right relationships, the things that are innately human and not easily replicatable by any type of a machine. So I think being very intentional about cultivating relationship management skills, really thinking heavily about experience. I think, APMG has a variety of courses and certifications that I've kind of tried to couple together to say we have to understand relationships, we have to understand value, we have to be intentional about the experience of change, the experience of adoption, and then as well, how does that all inform and underpin your organizational change strategy? Even if you're not driving that strategy, how do you participate in that by being intentional about relationship and experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Great. Makes sense. Ian, did you want to add to this?
Yeah, it's a sense of humor, a core skill, you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so look, I mean, yeah, having a sense of humor and being able to kind of go ride with it is definitely in there. But the thing for me is we are all different as human beings. We are all very different, as much as we'd like to think sometimes we're not. And I think the biggest skill for me in professionals is having that ability to understand that and practice as far as you can empathy, using collaborative and good communication and stakeholder engagement skills, just
Yeah.
generally, because it says pretty generally, the ability to work with and communicate and empathize with our fellow human beings is, for me, one of the biggest things. Everybody's got their specific profession and their skill set and what they're trying to focus on. But I think as a generic, if you want to use that kind of T-shaped kind of analogy of a skill set, then yeah, generally more skills like that would help in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Adrian, did you want to add your 2
Yeah,
cents?
I'm just building on what's been said, but I'm going to go back up to the top of the organization. In surveys on change management failure over decades, a recurring theme has been lack of engagement, lack of leadership from the top. One of the challenges with that, and I've worked with some clients, even one in a business school, where they said, we're having trouble being sponsors of change. And I thought, in a business school, and it wasn't they didn't understand how to be sponsors. What they didn't understand or have a solution for is how to have the time to have the right level of engagement in change. So what we ended up doing was find ways in which they could be effective as leaders and sponsors of change. And that's a real problem. One of the challenges is a training one. Still, very few MBAs have either project management or even change management as a core subject. Mostly, they are options within an option,
Right.
which is better than it was 20
Right.
years ago. But we need to try and find a way that those at the top of an organization, A, understand change, and B, have the time and capability to carry it out and lead it.
Yeah. Yep. Now, Ian, you had your hand up. Did you want to add to this, or should we move
Yeah,
on?
I just wanted to say at the end, the other thing as well is everything is interconnected in an organization.
Sure.
Everything is interconnected. So having this ability to have this kind of holistic systemic thinking, skill set also tends to kind of help.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, last thing.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right. Now we have lots and lots of questions coming through, guys. So we're going to try to get, I know we won't get to all of them, but we're going to do our very best. So the next one is, how can global organizations design change strategies that respect cultural and regulatory differences, yet ensure coherence? Well, that's a good one. That's a really good question. Who would like to take a stab at this one? Anyone? Crickets? Bueller?
Yeah, I'll go. I just wasn't very quick there at raising my hand.
Sarah, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think, like I say, we do have to really kind of, I think before anything, to be able to kind of think about how we can actually encourage strategies that are going to respect cultural and regulatory differences to be coherent. We need to actually understand where are we at the moment. And that sounds, really obvious, but again, it's fascinating when you ask anybody in organizations, what do they perceive the culture? What do they think it actually is? How are they kind of managing their part of the business as opposed to different people or, people around kind of different geographic locations?
Right.
So I think we need, like I say, to kind of really put it back and understand it first before we can even think about, therefore, what does it need to be for that future way of working to kind of have that alignment? It will go as well to the kind of, I don't like talking about psychological safety and the wording psychological safety, a bit like AI really, but it will go back to the fact that we're not going to actually be able to respect the people, and if we're different, if we haven't got that leadership and those bits in place to enable that. And a lot of the time, they need training and support and how to kind of create that right environment for these things to happen as well. And I'm going to pass over now because the other three.
This is a juicy one, right? This is a good question.
Mm.
Really good. I think, Ian, we're going to let you go next.
Okay, so my opinion on this is, I think Jeannie alluded to it earlier. In the past, we could have had this, this is the person that's change management for this particular project. But now we need what I would term as we talked about it, an always on kind of change model. It has to be federated, especially if it's global. So it's quite easy to have a central global change council or something like that. But then in each region of the business, which has different behaviors, different cultures, different beliefs, different regulations, you have to have those authorities in place. So it's like this, again, this change network and governance structures that allow you to understand those differences and take them into account when you're starting to plan and roll out change activity.
Love it. It makes such sense. Yeah. Adrian.
Yeah, I'm just going to build on something that sort of Sarah was talking about, and that's if you're going to do any change in an organization, the first thing you need to do is properly understand how the organization works. And I alluded to, in fact, I use two things. I use a variation on McKinsey's 5 dimensions operations model. So it starts with strategy, and then any aspects of change are going to be an integration of the organization and relationships between different parts of that organization structure and people aspects, process aspects, and tool aspects integrated together. The other thing is an iceberg, because all organizations are like icebergs. Above the surface, you'll see, strategy, vision, we've got policies, plans, but how the organization really works, there's an awful lot of stuff that's less visible underneath the surface, the kind of how we do things here and stuff and even down to, again, relationships sometimes between key people in the middle of the organization that can either help change or completely blow it out the water, to continue the iceberg analogy. So those are kind of two things that I gather that I've used a lot in defining and analyzing how change needs to work and how organizations really do work properly.
I love that analogy, the iceberg analogy. That's awesome. Janine?
Yeah, I'm going to play, as we mentioned earlier, corporate curmudgeon, or actually contrarian on this one just a little bit. Because as you know, I'm very passionate about the Neuroscience for Change course, the Neuroscience for Change. And I would submit as a point for consideration that you're actually changing a person. And as I tell people when I teach, brain going to do what a brain going to do. And so honestly, while we can worry about regulatory and cultural issues, we're still dealing with individual human beings with brains that react almost identically across the spectrum. I don't care if you're in South Africa or South Carolina, as we are right now on here. The human brain has been wired for eons to react the same way to change. So honestly, I'm going to play a little bit of contrarian on here and say it comes down to how a human being reacts to and adopts change, irrespective of where they sit in the globe, what organizational constraints they have around regulation. I honestly don't feel like either of those things are that significant as an impact, as much as thinking about the human factor and how the human brain processes change.
Yeah.
So my contrarian statement for the day.
Some disagreements. I love it. Adrian.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, because I did some work with sort of an organizational neuroscientist about 12, 13 years ago, and this kind of came up, and this sort of spectrum of reaction to change, most of which are towards the fear end of an emotional sort of spectrum. So we're hardwired for fear of change, things that surprise us.
Yes.
Not just us as individuals, but you can translate that into groups of people, which is why you kind of get mob reactions and panic and stuff, and demonstrations and the like. So, but you can also use that positively, but you've got to be aware of it first of all.
That's right.
Yeah. Panic. What kind of panic? What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't get it.
I just means you can sometimes see panic reactions in crowd situations.
No, I totally get it.
As well as happy ones in the middle of concert.
Yeah, love it.
Mexican waves.
Sarah, did you want to add?
Yeah, just quickly, and everyone that knows me as well will know that I'm all about people. It's all I pretty much, whenever I'm delivering anything, it's always about the people side. I'm going to be a little bit controversial as well now, because I don't disagree about the neuroscience and that we're wired not to like change. But I do get frustrated when I was seeing LinkedIn posts, for example, saying we just do not like change. Because again, it's being misinterpreted. Things are very dangerous in the wrong hands. And we know there's more to it than that. It would depend what else has gone on previously. It would depend on individuals' experiences. It depends on so many other things, which again does link back, doesn't it? That it's about understanding our audience, the people we're working with, and why would that fear be there if there is fear? Because we also shouldn't underestimate people. Some people actually are okay, and they actually sometimes, want to be embracing things as well. So just again, it's always in the right hands, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that has to be in the right hands. All right, guys, we'll move forward because we have a ton of questions, and I don't know if we're going to get to all of them. Okay, this question, actually, this one's for you, Jeannie. Look at this. In your intro, you said, I said, that you create clarity from chaos. And what are the top 3 things that are key to creating this strategy? Some people are listening to me. That's good.
Woot, woot. So in my experience, chaos reigns. Right. And what it has been really the result of is lack of clarity. There's a statement that clarity is kindness. I have a slide I use in almost every one of my presentations. It's the Las Vegas logo, if everybody's familiar with the Las Vegas, and it says, what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. So thinking about, right. So it's basically
t-shirt.
One of the things that I do is definitely come in and try to create role clarity, because I have found that the largest amount of contention in any project, in any organization, is lack of role clarity. So making sure that there is absolute role clarity. The other issue that I see that really creates chaos is ambiguity in terminology. And again, having been at the helm of a lot of technology projects, my original passion was software requirements management. I used to teach that all around the world, and ambiguity around terminology. And everybody using the same different words to mean the same thing makes it unmeasurable, I was a software developer for 25 years. If you're using words that are ambiguous, that are not quantifiable, you're going to have chaos. You're not going to have clarity. So it's in the way we show up and work together. It's in the terms that we use, and it's constantly being on guard for what I've coined another phrase here called intentional obfuscation. I don't know if you guys have ever been in situations where it feels like it's been intentionally obfuscated. And I am always looking for that when I work, especially with leaders. I come from a Big Four consulting background, and I promise you, we did intentional obfuscation to be held less accountable to outcomes. I hate to say that, but typically when I see chaos happening and I see intentional obfuscation, it's because there is either lack of clarity about what we're really going to do, lack of competency to actually deliver it, or lack of desire to be accountable for the outcomes. So quantifiability, removing all ambiguity in terminology and construct, and making sure that there is no intentional obfuscation or any obfuscation happening, whether it's nefarious or just unintended. But it all comes back to consensual terminology, consensual expectation of outcomes, and how we work together being clearly identified.
Yeah, I love that. Ian, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I also want to ask Jeanine a question in addition to this.
No pressure, Jeanine.
In your experience, I'm just talking about the clarity from chaos. I mean, one of the big things that I've seen before is people being involved and people getting included in the plan and the planning. And this is what we're going to do. What do you think? So to kind of, chaos reigns, totally agree. But, what's your view, Jeanine, on getting people involved in the planning and sharing the planning in addition to what you've said? In my experience, tends to remove that fog almost and lowers resistance and gives a little bit of easiness amongst people. Is that something you've found?
Yeah, so I have a double-edged sword on that conversation. So my project management approach that I teach is called all celebrations, no surprises. And what I have found out is it actually aligns well with, if you look at the Pepe model from the neuroscience for change, absolutely allowing peaks and valleys, allowing celebration, removing all error signals to the greatest extent possible, which, to your point, requires broader engagement. The challenge with broader engagement is then you start to run it by committee, and committee can't happen. So my premise has always been that as a project manager, you are a benevolent dictator. And that is basically a good project manager, write that down, is a benevolent dictator. Because you have got to get to the point where you say, I've heard everything. We've prioritized, we've waited, we've used whatever tools or techniques we do to understand the scope, the why, the how, but we're done. This is it. We're not going to keep iterating. We're not going to decide again and decide again and decide again.
Yeah.
So it's really that benevolent dictatorship combined with taking in a lot of input and feedback, prioritizing and ranking whose feedback really matters, having that weighted into your requirements matrices. This came from this person. It has a 1.5 rating. So there are ways to quantifiably do that. But in the end, project manager, the buck stops with them. PMI will tell you that, right? And you've got to be able to say, we're done. We're moving.
Yeah. Project management, benevolent dictator. Ian, did you want to add this quickly? Because we are running out of time. We've got tons of questions.
I want to have this discussion. So we've got a project manager, benevolent dictator, but there's a change manager. So we're kind of sitting there going, who is the benevolent dictator when it comes to the humans? And how, so it's kind of that clash of roles. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Because I would kind of default to say, the PM of the project's got the overall responsibility, but surely when it comes to the change element of it, there has to be, how does that accountability, how does that decision making work in everybody's experience? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm just conscious about time, but but more than happy to. I could talk all day about that.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I just have something to think about.
Juicy. This is a juicy conversation. So.
Okay, yeah. Let's move on. Sorry.
All right. No, don't be sorry. I love this. I think this is what the audience was. This is live. This is how we really get into it. Roll up our sleeves, right? All right. Now we do want to quick get into the second poll, guys. So the second poll that we have is, if organizations delay change management now, what's the biggest risk they face? So please go ahead and participate in the poll, guys. We just love this stuff. So go ahead and get into that. Appreciate everybody doing it. And again, thank you so much for everybody. There's tons and tons of live questions. I know we're not going to get to everything today, but we appreciate you guys sending them in. And we're going to get to as many as humanly possible. So, okay, moving on. Let's see what we've got next. Okay. So the next question, bear with me, folks. Let's see here. We've got so many coming in. Is it working? Oh, I think that's on me, guys. Hang on one second. Okay. So the next question, apologies, isn't the C-level drive to reduce cost the largest risk around change management because change is considered tree huggers who add non-specific ROI? I love this so much. Sorry, guys, I had to. I love this question. Love it. We got a saucy audience today, too. Adrian, what do you think?
I'm going to come straight back, if you like, almost reiterating what I kind of said a few minutes ago. They might just focus purely on cost, but it comes back to whether or not they understand change and what it can do, and also the mechanism from change, which is a portfolio usually of programs and projects. So it is partly about finding a way to give them that understanding. There's a concept called the project economy that's been talked about for a number of years. There's ideas like having chief project officers or chief change officers at the C-level. There's all sorts of mechanisms, but the key challenge is getting that understanding in the C-level that actually changes their job. And there's no one else who can lead and sustain that energy of change. That's what they're being paid for, and being paid for increasingly. Just somehow we need to give them that capability.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, makes sense. Sarah, go ahead.
Kind of feeds on from what Ian wanted to start the whole conversation about, actually, because there's no two ways about it. Change management makes a difference. I think we get too bogged down in terminology about roles. It just drives me crazy. Absolutely, you need a project manager, change manager working, hands in hand together But kind of what we were alluding to, like say, you need top down knowing how to just, manage change on a day to day, manage people, guess what, on a day to day. But the whole organization needs that capability. Everybody, because it's consistent, it should be part of BAU really, that when the things are obsolete, we can very easily within the environment say these are obsolete, let's stop doing that and let's start doing this and bringing it into BAU as efficiently as possible, whilst of course maintaining the people, seeing actually, we've all got the skills, we're all part of it, and we're, it's all making sense. So, until we start being able to actually evidence the impact we're making, it is tough, but we need people to really start measuring the difference that the change is making, the people side of things, as opposed to the initial, just the project side. Because otherwise we're going to continue with all of these legacy systems, all of these ways of doing things that haven't actually worked. People are pretending they have, and the reality is they haven't, because people aren't doing anything differently. So what was the whole point anyway?
Yeah.
Also why I sponsor the Change Awards, because we want to kind of be growing the kind of thing about change management too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anybody want to add to this, or should we move on? Keep going. And again, everybody, thank you for all the live questions. I know we won't get to everything today. Obviously, there's just tons and tons, but go ahead and ask them anyways, because we'll make sure the panelists do get to all the questions even after the show. So keep them coming, guys. All right, so the next question is the term change management sometimes is perceived as an old thing since change is happening every day. Something more well received is directing change and impacts in a certain way to achieve organization goals. So ask for their commitment. That is a real point, to have tips on how to bring them to the same side. I just thought that was interesting. Anybody want to tackle that? A comment, Jeannie?
Yeah, I think to your point, a rebrand is probably due. And I think also one of the challenges you might have is when you work with an IT organization, ITIL change has a very different connotation. And so you're continuously clarifying, no, I don't mean impacting the CMDB, I mean impacting your human beings, right? So
Right.
I feel like, again, going back to that clarity and removing any chances for miscommunication. I was privileged to be part of a conference in Spain last month, because of working with the neuroscience group here. And we actually brainstormed for a long time about a better way to position this from a brand perspective, and really got to thinking about, is this actually resiliency? Is this actually adaptability? What would actually make this resonate and make more sense? Because change just in general is a little bit of a negative connotation, a little bit dry, a little bit boring. But if you position this as really being a core, adaptability is the core resilience skill for any organization now. If an organization is not adaptable, it will not survive.
Right.
And organizational change management, as we're talking about it here, is the conduit by which resilience and adaptability happens. So there was a great conversation about, can we start kind of a rebranding campaign away from change, away from even organizational change management to organizational resiliency or organizational adaptability, and really position it for what it is, because change is what you're doing. Resilience and adaptability is what you get.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Adrian, did you want to add to this quickly? We got to keep it moving.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the contrarian bit myself. There's an awful lot of rebranding and reinvention of the wheel going on. There's so many articles on LinkedIn that are sort of saying, "Oh, I've got new project management. I've got adaptive project management. I've got this, that, and the other." And actually, they're all the same. It's not the same. Yeah, I recognize that some people are uncomfortable with the titles. I've worked with clients who said, we can't use the agile word, but I want agility. So we don't bother with the agile word. We just do agility. And the same with change. I actually don't care what label we use. What I do care is that then people say, oh, I've got something that's completely brand new. And actually it isn't. So, let's focus on doing the right thing and doing it right. Less bothered what people call it.
Yeah. Not necessarily a shiny new toy, right? Ian, did you want to add?
Not a shiny new toy.
Right.
I told you not to upset Adrian. Okay, just a comment. In South Africa, we have this, especially in big corporate, we have something called EAP. I'm just curious if the other guys have got something similar in their regions, where employee assistance programs. So essentially, a whole bunch of employees get, it's like a benefit from an employee perspective. They can get counseling, they can get advice and guidance for them and their families on various kind of issues. And I've seen a couple of organizations now have been bolting that into large scale initiatives that are happening in their areas, where they can call on the EAP providers like psychologists and change specialists to kind of help them cope with potentially what's happening in the company. So yeah, I mean, I think we're quite fortunate here. EAP, as we know it, is quite kind of well known here, and it's starting to be leveraged into these kind of realms as well, which I quite like.
Yeah.
So it's a start, is my point. It's it's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, but it's always the same people that would be going to access those. It's the people that don't recognise necessarily their need to, or a bit wary, isn't it? So it's like I say, getting that balance.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, we're gonna keep moving, guys. We gotta speed it up. We're gonna try to get to as many questions as possible. All right, it's an order from your host. Okay, has hybrid working either helped or hindered change management? I thought this was a good one. Really?
I think if you're doing it well, it doesn't make a difference. If you know how to, it's like when I deliver training virtually, I'm just going to blow my own trumpet. I think I'm a great trainer, whether it's virtual or in the classroom, from a training perspective. And I think it's exactly the same. If you're good at, reading people, knowing how to engage with people, and it goes back to what Janine's been saying about that clarity of what's acceptable, what's not, what roles, what responsibilities, when do you need to be in a physical place as opposed to, not. But so many people are going back to hybrid. It's ridiculous because they're in offices and they can't have meetings because they can't hear anything going on anyway. So it's all, again, why are we even doing these things needs to be the first reasoning, really.
Love that. Adrian, did you want to add?
Yeah, it's down to the organization culture again. Hybrid working can be chaotic and destructive if the organization is not set up to support and effectively performance manage, whether it's change or whether it's operational work. And I haven't got time to talk about a company that I worked with for the past 6 or 7 years since the startup. They have been unbelievably successful in their growth as a hybrid organization from the start, but it was designed to work that way. COVID has caused a lot of chaos, and companies have still not taken proper control of it and are therefore not using it well.
Yeah. Jeanine, did you want to add?
Yeah, just real quick. Like I said earlier, brain going to do what a brain going to do. Doesn't matter if it's sitting in a cubicle or sitting in their home office. So I think, we don't want to overthink the human element, irrespective of where that human element happens to be.
Right. Ian.
Last thing from me on this is I'm going to take it the other way. Has hybrid helped or hindered? Doesn't matter. I kind of agree. Brain's going to do what a brain's going to do, and people are what they are. It's just on the converse, in change management, we've had to slightly adapt and change the way we do the work, but the work still gets done. So I would say it's helped, hindered. I don't think it really matters. It's just on the converse, we've had to change the way we do things a little bit. And I agree with Adrian. Company culture.
Company culture. All right, guys, I think we're going to get to a couple more, or at least one more here. Try to. All right, I just thought this was a good one. What are the key change models that we should be using more in 2026? This is kind of the chunk of our conversation today. Who wants to tackle this? Who wants to take it on? Really, guys?
I just think it's tricky, isn't it? Because when we start talking about models, it goes back to any model can work if it's in the right hands and being done, but we don't want to overcomplicate things. We should just really kind of keep things as simplistic as possible. And, just remember, like I say, it's people inherently that need to be part of all of these things that we're doing. But there are model, I see a lot of people like ADCAR, keeps it quite simple. Personally, I will always love, rightly or wrongly, the change curve, bridges transition, because it reminds people of actually we're navigating people through transition, not just the activities. So, like we said earlier, it's nothing new, nothing shiny. Stick to the basics and just stick to remembering ultimately what do we need to do and how are we best going to enable the people to be able to do that.
Yeah, nothing new, nothing shiny. Ian.
Very quickly, there are many change models around in my experience. Don't use one, use a combination, because some are very high level, some are quite detailed. So definitely have a look at combining models. The best model, in my experience, currently out today is SIAM. It's like an operating model for an organization, but built into SIAM is a lot of collaboration, communication, OCM by definition of the way SIAM works.
Right.
Integrate, collaborate, amalgamate. So Mike, go look at SIAM.
Adrian, did you want to add to this quickly? And then we're going to have to.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat that whatever you do, make sure you are integrating the organizational structure aspects, people aspects, process aspects, tool and technology aspects. It all has to be deliberate integration. We're not IT led. It's an integration of all that stuff. Yeah. When it comes down to, but that's the simplicity bit. Underneath there is a world of complexity. And the delivery mechanism, programs and projects, they're not simple. There are no magic bullets. Project management is complicated.
Yeah.
That's why it's a profession.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm sorry we're not going to get to all the questions, but again, please go ahead to continue to ask questions, and we'll have the panelists respond to them at some point. So we do have to wrap it up because we are running out of time. I knew we wouldn't get to all this stuff today, but really quickly, let's briefly go around the room. I just want you guys to give some quick closing remarks. What do you think of the questions today? What do you think of the topics? What everybody talked about? Do you want to fist fight anybody? Let's talk about it. We'll start with you, Adrian.
I'm not going to fist fight with anybody. There are too many witnesses. No, it's the people side of things has come up, and I've also seen one or two comments that's come up from the participants out there that's talked about the people side of this, which when I started out 40 or so years ago was just not recognized at all, except by the professionals who did things. And so, yeah, we just need to recognize that people are going to be the center of everything, and they're the ones who ultimately succeed or fail.
Yeah. All right. Love it. Ian, what do you think?
Ditto, Adrian, definitely. Yeah, I think it's just don't give up. Just keep going, persevere, without a doubt, because human centricity is extremely important, and organizations need to really dig in and focus on their employees and their human stakeholders. So yeah, don't give in.
Give in. Love it. Sarah?
Thank you so much for a great panel. Thank you to a wonderful audience that always love passion. I just will finish saying, people are a function of themselves in the environment, or James Colocchio, don't put the alcoholic back in the pub. So I always think about that, and systems thinkings are always my kind of go-to.
Love it. Love it. Jeannie?
I think this is the single most important conversation that needs to happen. I want to encourage all of our attendees to not give up the good fight, to continue to raise the flag of change, having been an employee, an implementation consultant, and a seller of a very, very, very popular software product where we would always cut the organizational change to meet the budget because, spending another $1 million on technology is going to fix all the problems.
Right.
Make sure you keep up the good fight inside your organization, continue to raise the flag of human impact, the value of organizational change, and it's everybody's responsibility. It goes back to that democratization of change. I would always raise that as a risk on any project I would take on. Who owns change? Nobody? Risk. So make sure you're continuing to keep that as a risk flag in any endeavor that you're on, and just don't give up the good fight. I see the tide turning based on how many people we have on this conference call. So just keep up the good fight and keep raising the flag of the importance of organizational change.
Yeah, I love it. And I can't thank you guys enough for joining me. What a great, diverse group of expertise and panelists here. So, and I love the questions. You guys did a really good job. So thank you so much. Now we are going to announce the winners of the contest of the 2 exams. So Arena Damiani, I hope I pronounced that right, and Aisha Smith, congratulations. You guys both get free Change Management Foundation exams on behalf of APMG International, which is glorious. And well done, everybody. Thank you so much. Again, I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions today, guys, but we will answer them. And then just don't forget that over on our website, you can search for answers to over 3,000 and change questions, which is a free resource connecting you with all the experts from around the world. And also don't forget, you can listen to the audio versions of our shows on your preferred podcast platform. Also, please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of valuable learning content available for you guys free of charge. Thank you again to our awesome panelists, to our wonderful audience. We had a lot of people on the call today. And thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on our next event. We really appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great day.